Hello, this is Dale Matthews. It's Inside News, and Mike says he's good. I think you'll agree. You're good, Mike.
Yes, thanks. I make a very good omelet.
Well, I have to crack you open to get that.
Yes.
So, the question over my shoulder, am I my brother's keeper? We are increasingly becoming our brother's keepers here in Grants Pass and in Josephine County in general, in Cave Junction.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not so much in Merlin. I'm not quite sure about that. Where there are people who come to this area who are homeless. We're not the only place where this is happening, obviously. Mm-hmm. And generally, they have no food, and they sometimes get into trouble and into fights with each other, and they are causing what downtown merchants are calling a nuisance.
Yeah.
Well, what do you know about that?
You know what? I think you have to draw a line. And, it's clear that right now the Gospel Rescue Mission is trying to do that. What they want to do is they want to separate the people who are legitimately trying to make their lives better, and they want to give those people a hand up and, not subsidize, habitual situation. There's two things going on. If you want to help those who are down on their luck, I think that is really an admirable thing to do. But on the same token, there are certain human laws that apply. Anything you subsidize, you get more of. So when you subsidize people who are not interested in being upwardly mobile and are basically interested in a free meal, and then because of that, they just happen to be in areas where targets of convenience for theft and things like that take place, and vandalism and that type of thing. So I understand, right down there, you're talking about the St. Vincent de Paul, near the corner of 7th and M, and that's a spot that they're congregating around there a lot, and so they're probably in the neighborhoods that directly surround that. They probably have a lot more in the way of complaints about it, and I know that they're pursuing solutions to that. Hopefully, it's the right stuff, but one never knows.
Well, it is the time. It is the time for all of us to be honest about this and to not gloss over some of the facts. We're not going to gloss over any of the facts here. If you decide to go into a place like the Gospel Rescue Mission, if you want to eat, you're going to need to put up with a religious message, one with which you may not agree, or one that you just don't want to. Hey, I'm hungry. And I appreciate the fact that you've got religion for your own, but I'm not sure I'm interested in listening to your entire message before I can eat.
Then find the free food place that doesn't have that, I mean, yeah.
I understand Mike's point. I understand it completely. It's very much like, I know people don't like to talk about this either, the 12-step programs that go along with DUI. Hello, Commissioner, the 12-step programs that go with that. In order to get involved in that, and sometimes judges, sometimes they sentence you to that. They say, if you want to be able to get off of this, or you want any kind of break, you're going to have to enroll in a 12-step program. They're all related around the idea that you give up all of your responsibilities to God, and that you follow this hierarchy that's going to tell you what to do. And so you need to get rid of your ego completely and put it all in a higher power's hands. Well, I do that, but that's not everybody's thing. And there are people who they just don't believe in the same kind of thing that I do. Now,
by the way, Dave,
really? Yeah.
I'm really glad that you're off the drugs. I mean, you're a totally different person now than you were. Yes.
Yes, right. The point is that I certainly have a way of thinking, and that comes out every once in a while in what I do and what I say, and it leaks out of Mike occasionally as well. But the problem is that not everybody's like that. And the idea that I would insist that somebody has to do it my way or no way at all, that's not my America. It is the America for a lot of people in Grants Pass.
Hang on just a second, though. No one is forcing anyone to receive the benefit. If you're going to receive the benefit, there's nothing. Listen, if I'm going to feed you, sadly, you might not like the decor in my house, but I'm not going to redecorate to make you feel better.
However, if you're going to feed me stewed tomatoes, I may not want to eat them.
Good. Then find someplace else that's feeding something better.
Yeah.
Listen, even for people of less than substantial means, there is freedom of choice.
Now we get down to the thing about half of the food in the schools that's being thrown away. This is, according to our government experts, half of the food is getting thrown away. And there are a lot of people who've criticized the current government in Washington, D.C., the Obamas, for insisting that there are certain things that you should be eating, even though the kids don't want to eat that. And if you gave them Lunchables, they'd probably eat all of it plus the container it came in. But instead, you're saying, no, you've got to eat these, rice cakes and rutabagas or whatever, because that's good for you. So the question is then, these people who are homeless, some of them are a combination of childlike and not, right? And then the question is, how far do you go and where do you draw the line? Is there an age difference? Do you say to children, as my father said to me, you're going to eat these stewed tomatoes or you're going to starve? And that's why I still can't eat stewed tomatoes to this day.
Well, stewed tomatoes. Listen, yeah. I think there is enough choice out there in the world of nutritious vegetables that you can find out what your kids like and have that on the menu. One would hope that you would do that if you have kids. But listen, maybe all you have is stewed tomatoes. And if that's the case, then I guess, you will you'll get good with stewed tomatoes, or you'll get a paper route and buy yourself a hamburger or something. I don't know.
Well, there were times in my family's history where it came dang close to that, but mostly it was about my father said the way that he was raised, he ate whatever they put on his plate. And of course, he was in the military too. And so you ate everything that they put on your plate and you didn't have a choice of what they were putting on there. So by gosh, my son's going to do that as well.
Right.
I understand the point. I truly do. But honestly, I mean, no joke. I can't eat stewed tomatoes even now because it's just bleh.
Yeah, listen, it doesn't appeal to me either. However, I will occasionally use stewed tomatoes when making, like, I'm a big fan of the 15 bean soup mix, and okay. So if during the holidays where Christmas and Easter, where you get a ham, and of course, once you've taken all the spiral sliced stuff off of it, there's this big section that isn't spiral sliced, and you have to take that off and chop it up into little pieces. And I always do the 15 bean soup mix, and you can have it in the pantry for 20 years, and it's still going to be what it is. And
it's just not enough beans for me. Just 15 of them. That's all.
It's 15 different types of beans. There are many thousands of beans, Dale.
You didn't know it was going to be tonight, did you? It's about how to cook.
Yeah, but stewed tomatoes is part of the recipe for that.
Yeah, Of course it is. I'm using this as an example, of course. Well, over in Roseburg, they've had the same kind of problems that we have here with transients in the area. And there are a number of people who feel like, listen, I don't want to keep seeing the same transients. What, you want to see new ones? No, they just don't want to see them at all. And so I found an article I thought would be interesting for us to tell you about from the Roseburg News Review. It's called Exclusion Zone. Nuisance property rules adopted by city. Now, this came from about the end of May by a writer, Troy Brennelson. And it starts off, 2 new ordinances aim to prevent crime in Roseburg's downtown area have been officially adopted. Mike?
Monday night, the Roseburg City Council voted 6-1 in favor of the new ordinances. They will allow officers with the Roseburg Police Department to ban repeat criminals from downtown and hold owners of businesses and so-called nuisance properties accountable for allowing criminal activities.
Accountable for allowing criminal activities, Mike. The ordinance, yeah, accountable for allowing criminal activities.
Now here, let's just take that for a second. If I have a piece of property and I am encouraging or accommodating people who are normally engaged in criminal activities, and I know that, and I continue to allow that to be a venue for them to congregate and or operate from, I kind of get that.
Now, what's the other definition of that? That there are things that are happening somewhere around your store. You're inside the store taking care of business, and you're not paying attention to what's going on out on the street out in front of your place.
Yeah, and that's a different story. And those two things, I think that should be something that someone would use a little bit of common sense in applying that, because if it's something that's happening beyond somebody's control, I don't think it's really right to ding them for that. Anyway.
Ban repeat criminals from downtown and hold owners of businesses and so-called nuisance properties accountable for allowing criminal activities. The ordinances were a response to rising crime rates in the downtown area of Roseburg, leading to multiple instances of business owners pleading to the city officials to intervene. They continued that disorder, drug abuse, and violence in downtown not only caused them to fear for their own safety, but that of their businesses. The problems could scare away potential customers, they said.
Councillor Steve Causer was the sole dissenter, as he worried the ordinances were too open-ended and could be mishandled. Councillor Victoria Hawks was not present.
Some argue that the ordinances unfairly target homeless people downtown, though proponents of the ordinance say that the ordinances only aim to prevent crime, regardless of the perpetrator. Okay. A third ordinance would have banned unauthorized appropriation of shopping carts.
Yes. That's called stealing, by the way. According to Councillor John McDonald, the ordinances aren't meant to be the only answer to the problem, but rather work together with current help in place through groups like the United Community Action Network and the Homeless Transition Action Group.
Roseburg resident Ashley Catter argued that the ordinances were too punitive for a problem as complex as homelessness. Quote, the solution is not to try to eliminate homeless people from an area, but to find the root of the problem, Catter said. It's not just a matter of eliminating them, it's also a matter of helping them.
Police Chief Jim Berg said ordinances will be used conservatively and that officers working in the downtown would use good judgment in enforcing them. I know there was a concern about the pettiness of types of violations. We are not that type of agency, Berg said. I think the city manager and city council will see that this ordinance is not abused or mishandled. I have faith in all my folks that they will be very judicious and fair in their application.
An exclusion zone was similarly proposed by downtown businesses back in 2013, but city officials declined to adopt it at that point.
Well, 6-1, that's a pretty healthy majority, and I'm guessing that they've had it about up to here. The thing is, and I've said this 100 times, I'm not against helping people who are down and out. I don't want to subsidize criminals, and I don't think that you really owe a whole lot of sympathy towards people who are damaging you in some way. I mean, there's compassion, and then there's being accommodating to people who are not, you may be somebody coming in there helping them, and then you go home out to an area that's not affected by it. And then people in that area have to live with what you're subsidizing. I think it's, and it's interesting that we're considering different rules on dealing with the transients in the downtown, but we're in the midst of doing that. It almost seems as though we're about to take on a regular budget item, as a regular expense to do that. And I'm not a big fan of charity by coercion.
Well, we've all heard the story of the person that was trying to give a burger to some supposedly homeless guy on the street, and the homeless guy was angry because what he wanted was money, so he could get what he wanted. I mean, this same kind of thing happened to me, and I handed a bag out the window. The guy wasn't happy with the bag because what was in the bag?
Food.
Stewed tomatoes.
Okay. Well,
all right.
I mean, you got to get rid of them somehow. Dad, stop sending me stewed tomatoes. I don't want them.
That's long distance. That's really long distance. Okay. Yes. So here is Bill Landis. He's the city police chief, and he's making a report to the city council today. This is from today's workshop, and one of the aspects of things that they talked about. And he's talking about some advances that have been made toward moving the homeless further away from the business center of Grants Pass.
Vagrancy has been on the list of council goals for some time. I got a phone call from Ken Emilio of the Gospel Rescue Mission one morning several months ago to have a cup of coffee, and at the meeting where we were trying to solve some of the issues surrounding St. Vincent de Paul and the downtown, as well as the mission with the drop-in for meals, Ken had an idea that part of the problem could be solved if we could form mobile kitchens and partnerships so that meals would be provided, rotating and out different areas rather than having fixed sites that actually draw people to them, establish transient camps in some instances. And so we just started to talk about it. From that, we grew a bigger group of, if you will, of people who were interested in seeing the project. And of course, St. Vincent de Paul became part of that. Renee, who is their director, the Gospel Rescue Mission had Ken Emilio involved, as well as some of their board members.
Now, before anybody comes to the conclusion that I'm a bleeding heart liberal, this does sound a bit to me like breakfast in bed.
Yeah, you know what? But there's an interesting thing here. It's like the Gospel Rescue Mission guy called up the city, the city police department, and said, we need to establish such and such. It's like, okay, do it yourself. You want to bring the city into it because you want the cost to be subsidized somehow, or you want them to do it. Listen, this is not the people's job. If you want to be charitable, more power to you. Do not force that upon me or anybody else.
Why wouldn't you call Dennis Weber over at Parkway Christian Center?
Right.
How about calling the guy at the church where if you question authority, you're a Satan worshiper? Why not call that guy?
Absolutely. But the other thing that he said, and it was very, very quick, he went over it, but it almost seems as like the city will be setting up homeless camps.
No, that's not going to, but that is what it sounded like. Let's let him speak a little bit more.
We did reach agreements with the Gospel Rescue Mission and St. Vincent de Paul for ceasing drop-in meal service. The mission, realizing that part of the problem down in the F Street area was that they do serve 3 meals a day to persons who drop in that are non-residences. And so they really have no control of what happens outside of the time that they're inside just eating their meals, and realized that they were creating some of the problems. There were some escalating threats to staff. Some of those folks that come to the mission to become residents are trying to get their life back in order. And so mixing people who drop in with that group became somewhat of a problem for the mission. At the same time, St. Vincent de Paul certainly realized that they had a lot of complaints about the folks that come downtown and just stay and hang out until such time as the meals get served. They had also expanded to, I think, donuts and coffee earlier in the morning, and then allowing the people to hang around till lunchtime where they would serve meals.
Okay, so from the other side, if I'm hungry, I'm going to show up and try to get there before the whole crowd does, and I'm going to hang around until the meal's ready.
Yeah, and you're not really incentivized to go somewhere else because in a few more hours there's going to be more there. And listen, this is going to sound really bad. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. It has any number of applications. This is certainly one of them. Listen, I don't want to say it over and over and over again. I will one more time. That don't have anything against homeless people, and I'm sick and tired of having to qualify that. It's really dumb that somebody should have to qualify that. Doesn't mean you're not charitable at all. What it means is that when we hand out charity to people, we require certain decorum. And the ravaging the downtown is not on the list. Listen, I don't know why they, well, actually, I do know why they put up with this for so many years, because it's the same reason, nobody wants to be called a racist, or nobody wants to be called,
sexist,
uncharitable, or sexist, or any one of these things that means that you're somehow biased, you're prejudice, or you have you're an elitist, you're a 1%er, or some darn thing like that. So but listen, you cannot, if people are committing crimes, the police, their job is to run criminals the hell out of here. As far as I'm concerned, is to eradicate crime in the downtown area. To eradicate crime in the city of Grants Pass. That is the job of the police, and they should have a long time ago go to these people and say, "Hey, listen, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but you're pulling people in that are committing crimes, and this is damaging to the people who live around here." Now, it's interesting that he mentioned that the people who are wanting to be residents at the mission and are wanting to take their lives in a better direction, that these people that drop in for meals are a clash with that. Well, what do they tell you when you're trying to get off drugs? Don't hang around
people that, if you can't change the people around you, change the people around you.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So, I think that's really what the problem is that the two separate inclinations of those two different classes of people.
Well, compare this to, there's some large parking lots that are on the northern end of town. And I've seen it, we've probably all seen it, that sometimes a lot of high school students, especially, I think it's all high school, it's not going to be junior high or middle school students, are hanging around there with their cars and their girlfriends, and they're talking and bugging each other and laughing and having a good time, and probably doing some drinking and probably smoking some marijuana and etc. Probably. and occasionally they're, because of the whole kinds of different personalities there, somebody's going to get into a fight, and it's probably not just the girls, it's probably the guys mostly. Okay, that's going to happen. Now, in Roseburg, you could be in trouble as a property owner for allowing the high school students to park there and fraternize with each other and maybe get into fights. It probably happens every night.
Yeah, and I think enforcement of that should be judicious. You know, I don't think that's something that you ought to, you know, just automatically go in there and you know, issue some sort of an infraction to the property owner, because, you know, if somebody's sitting there unbeknownst to the owner, what are they supposed to do? Now,
a well-known congregation area, the kind of congregation that churches here do not appreciate. That's not our kind of congregation. And to me, it's very similar to the little kids at school who don't like what they're eating, the older kids who want to hang around with each other and they get into tussles, and the older kids who are hanging around the Gospel Rescue Mission waiting for their food. They're going to get into fights occasionally. I'm not saying I have the answer or that I think that that's a wonderful thing, but I don't really see any big difference among all these. I mean, everyone's supposed to be somewhat responsible for themselves, and some of these people who are homeless are not as responsible as you may be. Now,
sounds
what do we do?
Legit.
It's not illegal to be homeless.
Yes, right. It isn't illegal to be homeless, but it is illegal to break the law. Okay?
That's right.
And
Let's start with the commissioner.
And even homeless people should
Yes.
be aware of that. And as a matter of fact, you would think that they would be painfully aware of what the law is, because they're, you know, when you're homeless, you're almost in direct contact with life, baby. You know, you're going to be in an area that is best for you to be if you don't have any money. And that's where there's large populations of people, because you're going to be able to have access to employment if you care to do so, housing, things of that nature.
Now, that kind of irresponsibility on the part of each of these groups, we see some of that among people who are not in our audience. We see some of that, and we've been trying to tell people about this water bill coming on down the road, and they're not showing up at meetings, not saying anything, not writing any letters to the editor. It's a staid conservative kind of irresponsibility, but it's going to cost them in this area probably upwards to $500 million. And where's the response? Now, I understand that's much more socially acceptable. So they're responsible.
Well, and listen, this is a very good point, Dale. Which is more damaging to the city of Grant Pass?
That's the question.
Oh, hey, listen, the impact of this you know, oncoming and endless raping of your wallet for city expenses is that is certainly far more damaging than anything that's happening by homeless people in the downtown. Now, the homeless people and what they're doing is less pretty, you know, because we're going to have twinkly lights everywhere, you know, that we're paying through the nose for, you know, $100 light bulbs and stuff like that. I just, these things need to be looked at as though they're, you know, the same type of threat. You know,
my entire point. Thank you. Really.
Yeah. I believe that there are a lot of people who are not willing to say that they too have had enough of the homeless crime situation in the downtown area. I know a guy has a very, very nice building right downtown, and his building's constantly being damaged, constantly. Right. They're you know, he's got a little courtyard in there, and the homeless is sleeping there all the time, and right. And they come up close to the building, they pee in the doorways, and you know, I mean, it sucks having to deal with that stuff. And I mean, what are you going to do to somebody who's peeing in your doorway? Get out of here. They're going to get out of there. They'll be.
I asked this reporter at this Roseburg newspaper. I said, "So, can I ask you a few questions?" Yeah. And I said, "All right. So, let's suppose that the police go to downtown Roseburg and they see somebody that they've seen before, because it's repeat criminals. And what are they going to do? They're going to say to this person, 'Move along.' Right? Now, let's suppose the person says something that we can't repeat on this show in response to the police officer saying, 'Move along.' Yeah. What are they going to do with them?"
Well, you know what? There are. I remember living in California. There were a lot of municipalities with vagrancy laws, where vagrancy is a crime.
Mean? What does it mean? You're hanging around a section of down. It doesn't mean that you're sitting in someone's doorway impeding traffic, from getting into the business. But if you're walking around a 1 block area, let's say, of downtown, and you're just walking around, maybe talking to yourself, what on what charge are they going to do something with you, and what are they going to do?
I don't really know that that's what we're talking about here, though. What we're talking about, listen, it's not like there's just a bunch of people walking around and that's what the problem is in downtown Grants Pass.
But the problem is, I'm talking about Roseburg at the moment.
I know, but for crying out loud, it can't be that much different.
They're a step different than us, in that they've actually said it's going to be illegal to do such things, and the police can intervene. And I asked the guy, and he said, "Gee, I don't know. I hadn't thought about that. What are they going to do with the person? Put them in the police cruiser and then take them where?"
Well, I don't know. You know what? And this is where I believe that judgment comes into play.
Where police.
Well, and the police are pretty good at assessing. After a while, they know who the bad guys are. You talk to somebody for a few minutes, you can tell they're being evasive or, vague or something. You can tell when people, they can sniff out lack of transparency. They really can.
They can. We've been doing some of that ourselves. Yes.
So, when you run into those people, you go, well, if I leave you here, you're likely to do bad things. And so I'm going to take you in on vagrancy.
Hey, you've been arrested before for drunk driving. They threw you in jail. And now you're back again and you're sitting up in front of us. The Ann Basker.
Well, we're splitting hairs on the
hairs.
Yes, we are splitting hairs on criminal conduct and the levels of social hierarchy in
the Oregon Government Ethics Commission found them guilty, and even a misdemeanor in Oregon is considered a crime. These are criminals. There's one way. That's a bit over the top, but
all right. So listen, I don't have any problem with a cop making a judgment call on whether or not he thinks somebody should continue in the area or not. And listen, they're not infallible. They're human beings, so they're going to make mistakes in that respect. But I think that probably the downtown is going to be better off, cleaner and safer with the application of these laws. And they are not politically correct. And I'm sorry, I don't care.
I don't have an answer either. So I won't go down the road of pointing out that all three commissioners have filed false police reports at one time or another with the Grants Pass City Police. Okay, back to the Grants Pass City Police.
As of the 27th, the mission will cease drop-in meals, which is really going to change the DeBow Park, 3rd and G demographic drastically. And with the cutbacks that St. Vincent de Paul has made by reducing the time that they're open, you've already seen a decrease in the population that is around that time. So they've been actually doing things while at the same time trying to make a permanent fix to that. So I would say that even though it's been a while, the group is still actually looking at adjustments along the way too that will have an impact. And I think this summer, even if the kitchen isn't rolled out before the end of the tourist season, I think you'll see a drastic difference from last summer to this summer, especially with the mission stopping on the 27th.
Wow.
Well, you know what? This is a very interesting thing because I wonder what this will do to crime statistics.
Right.
You know?
That's
Very
right.
interesting.
What will the sobering center do to this? Right. Right. Okay. So the counselors had a couple of questions.
By using their kitchen and stopping the meals over there serving, I think we're going to draw them away from that part of downtown. And I would like to see us give some assistance to them. We do other things like this for different organizations, and we have other projects that are kind of way down on our priority list that I think this is a bigger priority than some things that we do fund, because it does affect our tourism downtown. And I would like to see us do something for them and get it off the ground as soon as possible so that we can, like you say, we have somebody that'll do it, help them the first year. And when I got a call the other day about this, they are looking for, so they can continue it, not just a 1-year try. And maybe then we can set a new trend and move them out of that problem area downtown.
Yeah, I disagree. I don't think that, listen, this is not a judgment as to whether or not you should help people. This is about pointing a gun at people and saying, give me your money. I'm going to do good things with it.
Yeah, I'll do better with it than you do.
I'll do better than you. As a matter of fact, you're an uncharitable jerk, and you won't give the money that's needed to do this. So I'm going to take the money from you, and we'll pull out a little chunk for the middleman in there, 80%, and then we'll throw 20% at the little charity that we all know is a great thing to do. It's it's really a great thing.
Separate
I'm
church and state.
Yeah, I'm completely against. Yeah, I that isn't really what's going on here. No,
it's acting like a church is my point.
Yeah, you're right, exactly. I just think this is government should stay out of this. Now, I did pop into this today briefly, and I heard him mention the amount $24,000 a year ongoing costs, and it was unclear at that time because I was only in there for a minute whether he was talking about that being a city expense, $24,000 a year. And he was also talking about the cost of some trailer that was going to be towed around the mobile kitchen, as it were, and whether or not that was going to be a city expense. And
I was like, have your answers.
Whoa. Okay, good deal.
Okay, so Dan DeYoung brought up, he said, well, now, wait a minute. Why can't they do with a used vehicle and a used trailer and all this? And the police chief said, yeah, good idea. That's exactly what they're doing. We're not running the whole thing. It's the St. Vincent de Paul people who are doing it. And they've tried to find this and they've tried to find that, but it's kind of difficult sometimes. They're still looking for it, and they're willing to do this all. They are asking the city if it wishes to help. And if you don't wish to help, then, don't help. Well, it looks like what's going to happen, though, based on the request for help and the continuing complaints from the business community downtown, it does look like the city council is going to chip in for half the cost, which would be $12,000 this year.
Yeah, I'm not down with it. I'm not down with it. Listen, when you go to the city, you go to the police chief and you say, hey, we'd like some help doing it. You're asking the people. Yes. And you know what? Why don't you just ask the people directly instead of going through government who, if they took this question to the people would probably say no.
They probably would.
Or you never know. They might say yes, in which case I still don't like it because, why don't you just ask people to donate? Why don't you just use your official bully pulpit to ask people to donate from their own pocket? I'm reminded of this, and I forget the specifics of this, but there was some politician, and this is, like during the Civil War or something, and some officer had died and his wife was in dire straits, and they, asked the Congress if they would give money to him, and he goes, "I would gladly give you 3 months of my own salary. But I cannot take the people's money and give it to you. This violates the contract that we have, So I just wish that people didn't think that government was a charity and that they're entitled to go down and get my money. If you want my money, come and ask me for it, and I'll make a decision as to whether or not I think I want to give you money for whatever cause it is that you
I was
represent.
there at the meeting of the county commissioners, the previous commissioners, where on the same meeting, 2 different groups came in. One wanted the county taxpayers to put up money for taking care of abandoned pets. They wanted money from all of us to take care of those little adorable animals. And then the other group, same meeting, they wanted money from all the taxpayers to put on a big picnic for veterans that had come back from various wars. Both of them felt that they deserved this money out of your pocket, and that instead of asking you for donations, and this happens with the library too, instead of asking you for donations, that's not going to be enough. And what they want is they want 3 commissioners to make the decision to give them the money, whether you like it or not. And maybe you do. Yeah. Only for the library and not for animals, or only for the veterans and not for the library.
And I remind you, this is why they do that, because of the 4 reasons that we talked about. Your own money on yourself. Your own money on somebody else, somebody else's money on yourself, somebody else's money on someone else. And the least value that you get for your money, or the least accountability that the person in charge of that money feels, or the least responsibility that they feel to the person whose money it is, it's easier for them to give it away. So it's no wonder why charities go to government. For this money, because they know, they go, I'm going to be a good person and I am going to bequeath you this money as though I'm doing it myself, and I'm going to feel good because I'm giving you this money. Aren't I a good person? No, you just stole that money out of my pocket and gave it to those people. I don't like those people, Or maybe I do like those people, but it's none of your business to jump into my pocket and decide how much I'm going to give them. And this is we've been going this direction for 100 years. So it's like, how stupid am I to be complaining about it? But I still do, because in my mind it's wrong.
Well, it's not fiscally conservative.
No.
You will almost certainly end up with county commissioners who are going to be making these same kind of decisions. And where are they going to go with all this? Are they going to say, now, wait a minute, I'm going to pay the political price for saying no to adorable little veteran animals that want to have a picnic?
Veteran animals?
Well, I'm combining them all, you see. Yes.
Oh, gotcha.
So, now, how do you say no to that and maintain your seat on the county? Well, maintaining your seat's not a problem. I mean, if you can be arrested for drinking, thrown in jail, not make the meeting that you were there, and still voted vice president of that organization, you got nothing to worry about.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So we followed the city council now because at this moment it almost seems like the county commissioners are in hibernation. It's the wrong time of year for hibernation. And so we're watching what the city council is doing. It doesn't mean the city council or even the commissioners are always doing something wrong, but the purpose of tonight's show is to actually spark a little conversation. And so Mike and I found it pretty easy to talk on both sides of this argument. You know, how much of all this is part of your conscience for being your brother's keeper? Should you be restricting that to your own conscience and that of your church, if that's what you wish to do? Or should that be given over to elected officials that say, well, I know how to spend the money for you?
Yeah, and listen, the commandment that you should be your brother's keeper is one on individuals, not on governments. It's not saying you should be your brother's keeper, and by the way, I'm going to handle that for you. Give me your money, and I'll trust me, I'll take care of it. I will take it. Listen, you know, interesting thing. There was really pretty high poverty rates, and they were steadily coming down throughout, you know, from the mid 40s to 1964 when they initiated the war on poverty. Very interesting video recently out about this.
Yes,
showing poverty rates coming down to about 17%. Well, they have remained flat despite the fact that we've dumped $20 trillion into subsidizing, people in poverty. I think, you know, we've removed a lot of responsibility. How much good we've actually done, I don't know. But a huge chunk of that 20 trillion gets taken out of the middle and goes to fund the running of the machine. I'm not down with that. I'll be charitable. Listen,
go ahead. Sorry.
Huh? No. Go ahead.
How much of this is due to expectations and the people around you? For example, it might sound like these are all disconnected things, but I'm going to try to connect them. When I was in school, people in high school, people didn't walk around with water bottles all the time and constantly hydrating themselves, or a backpack little thing with water in it. I mean, are people more thirsty now than they ever were before? It's expectations of the people around you. We have in this area so many people who are on medication for real pain. I'm not talking about people who are doing it just to get high, but for real pain. There's a lot of people who have back injuries. It doesn't seem to you like there's a disproportionate number of people with back injuries in our particular area in Josephine County, and people who are really suffering. I can see them hobbling along. This is not, what in the world is going on with this? It goes all the way back to an analogy that I've used of breaking a 4-minute mile. Now you're really going to think I'm off the topic. I'm not. When Roger Bannister, way back, before most of us were born, when he broke the 4-minute mile, it wasn't because the wind was at his back the whole time. It wasn't because he had terrific new shoes. He broke the 4-minute mile, and after that was done, all kinds of people were breaking it. Not toddlers, but I mean all kinds of people were. What in the world, what barrier was broken by him doing it? Expectation?
Well, you know what? I suspect that concentrated interest in that particular thing because, not everybody, had TVs, and, we used to go outside and do stuff.
Yeah, my parents insisted that I go outside and do stuff.
Yes. Right. So, there was probably a lot of people going, wow, hey, that's a really cool thing. Maybe I'll take up running. And they did. Hey, I'm pretty fast. And before you know it, you're running a mile in under 4 minutes.
So I'm talking about expectations.
A lot of it's
expectations. Now we see generations whole generations repeated where it's okay to be unwed mother. It's okay to father children and then not take any responsibility. It's okay to be on welfare. It's okay to get divorced. Okay, sorry, but there are some people who fall into that category.
You must have seen the same video. You must have seen the same video I just did.
Oh, I think that's certainly, but yes, it's a trend that we're seeing. It's okay to take money from these people and give it to those people because it's distribution of wealth.
Right.
There's another name for that in this world of ours, where you take money from the people that have it and you give it to people that don't have it.
Right.
It's called Indian government. It's called, of course.
Yeah, but the thing about it is that what they unintentionally created was that they circumvented something very important when they did that, and they separated families out, and then you destroyed the fabric of the structure that gives people a direction and purpose in their lives, and then you have just a total breakdown. And the black community has a big problem with that. And listen, the white community has a big problem with that, but not to the degree. And that degree can be measured by the presence of fathers in the home. And the father has abdicated his responsibility to the government, and essentially women have, connected themselves to the government the same way they would a husband, and it destroys the normal fabric of society, and ultimately leads to moral breakdown. And
I'll take that on. Okay, so we're going to go just a little bit over. I'll take that on. When my mother got divorced from my father, and even before she did, when he took off, okay, because he was born a century too late. He should have been a cowboy, just come back every once in a while. How's the crop growing, kind of thing. Cowboys don't have crops, but you get the idea. So she went down to the bank because she was the sole money earner, okay, and the bank said, well, you need to have your husband sign for this. Yeah, right. Well, I'm the only earner in this family. He doesn't contribute anything to it, and that was way back. Okay, so my point is, and I do have one that was in the early '60s. Now that women, I will tell you, now that women don't have to find a husband and make a family, and that's your role in society. All that you need to do is get a husband and make a family. Now that they can be independent, and they're getting more rights. I mean, look, I think you got 2 women senators out of 100. Woohoo! So they're making some progress about this. Maybe it's 4. Still not enough, right?
Yeah. I think it's, well. Listen, hey. I don't want to choose my senator on the basis of their gender, for crying out loud. Ideas are what matters.
A lot of people do. I agree with you. That's wrong. But, how many, it's no coincidence that 96 out of 100 are male. But anyway, my point is, now that they don't have to play only that role and none other, and they can actually get a bank account. Wow, where has society gone? Now that they can do that, there's no rule that says that you have to be married. There's no rule that says that you can't have a child. There's no rule that says that you have to live with a guy at all.
Right. But I tell you what, in 99 9/10% of cases, there are cases where there just is something special about a particular woman, that she's able to relate the same kinds of things that a father would in a situation. But really 99% of the time, you're better off if you've got a situation with both parents in the home. Because there is something different and equally valuable in the contribution of both parents. This idea that you don't need a man if you have a child. Well, you should have one. You don't have to if you're going to deliver the same sort of thing. Like it's an interesting thing when you watch. Who's the guy, the brain surgeon, a black guy that recently ran for president? Just a phenomenal story.
Carson?
Yeah, Ben Carson. Ben Carson. His life story is incredible because his mother was one of those women who just, she decided very early on that there were certain things that were very important, and education was one of them. And so she said, hey, no TV for you, and you're going to have to read 3 books a week, and you're going to have to, write a report on that book and give it to me, and she couldn't even read, but she knew because of her own limitations what she needed to instill in her kids in order to free them from what bound her.
The society.
What bound her. And,
yes.
Right. And literally, Ben Carson is a brain surgeon, and his brother is a rocket scientist. So there was something that was able to be imparted to them with just a mother, but that in 99% of cases is not the case at all. It just
I came from that kind of household. I'm not a rocket surgeon, but I do have a soft spot in my heart for backyard barbecues. We never had those. I can walk by a backyard barbecue now, and it makes me feel nostalgic for something I never had.
Well, I never actually had those growing up either. It wasn't until I was out on my own that I actually had that, because we just didn't do that. I was. Yeah.
Well, you're all invited to a backyard barbecue at Mike's house. Just send him an email.
Yes.
He'll provide the tomatoes. All right. Stewed or otherwise. Thank you very much for joining us. We're all looking for a solution to freedom of choice among people who choose to live a different way, and cluttering up the walkway into our business. What are we going to do? And how do we keep a benevolent police department with officer friendly, asking people to move along?
Yeah. Well, there's a happy medium somewhere.
Yeah. Good night. Find your happy medium.